Welcome to the Personal Podcast. I'm your host, Charlotte Nichols, and I'm joined in the studio today by Vicki Eagle. Vicki is founder of Poppy's Light Foundation. Vicki, on the 7th of August 2024, your 20-year-old daughter Poppy went upstairs to change into her pyjamas for a cosy family film night, but tragically suddenly died in her bedroom. What happened to Poppy?
Poppy had an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. We later learned that Poppy had a heart condition called CPVT. And despite our best efforts to resuscitate Poppy, we were unsuccessful.
Do you remember how you felt in that moment?
I remember the panic, the absolute panic, and autopilot, really. Listening to the children scream, I ran to the landline, even kind of processing, can I dial 999 on my mobile? Just that decision to run to the landline and dial an ambulance. And I remember the operator saying, is the patient breathing? And I said, no. And they said, does the patient have a pulse? And I said, no. And I said, we need help. We're desperate. We desperately need help. And she said, somebody's going to be with you very, very quickly. And the first ambulance was there within 7 minutes, which is extraordinary. But I remember running back up the stairs and thinking, oh gosh, I've told the paramedics that she's not breathing and she doesn't have a pulse, and I've not even looked at her yet. But Peter and the girls screaming, yeah, I knew it was very, very serious. And unfortunately, when I went into Poppy's bedroom, I just straight away started CPR, and it was all too real.
My goodness, I can't imagine that was horrific, doing CPR on your own daughter, because you were a nurse.
Yeah, and it's, as you can imagine, in my career, I've done CPR many times and thankfully been successful. And obviously as a mother, when I guess I needed it most and I wasn't successful.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's just such a difficult subject for you to talk about. I mean, I'm finding it hard enough, let alone you. I don't know how you've got the courage to do this. Do you remember how you felt in the weeks following Poppy's passing?
It was disbelief, and to a large degree it's still disbelief. Poppy's death was preventable had we only known. So she had a condition called CPVT, and that stands for catecholinergic polymorphic ventricular tachycardia. We're led to believe that it affects 1 in 10,000 people in the community, but how do we know when we don't currently screen for this? And the idea that had we known Poppy had CPVT medication, she would still be with us today. Something as simple as a beta blocker, which has been widely used since the 50s with minimal side effects, could have saved Poppy's life. And there isn't any blame. It's about what can we learn? What can we learn and what can we share with other parents? Mm-hmm. A short time before Poppy passed away, she fainted after using the exercise bike, and I took her to A&E. And I was working, at the time I was working from home. I was about to deliver some training to nurse colleagues, and I remember ringing my line manager and saying, I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to go. I need to take Poppy to A&E. And she said, of course, no problem. Is everything okay? And I'd said, Poppy's fainted. And I worked in child protection. You can imagine it's very busy, it's very stressful, we get burnt out. And I think probably my boss, who I'm still very close to and was enormously supportive, I think she felt reassured. Okay, don't worry, it's just a faint, but yes, go and get her checked out. Mm-hmm. We'll hold the fort here, it's not a problem. But nobody was desperately worried. And it was just an instinct to take Poppy to A&E. Even as a nurse, at no point did I think this could be Poppy's heart.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then when we went to A&E, I guess I read the room and I took her to our neighbourhood hospital, and They were great, you know, they were very sympathetic, but this is a busy local A&E department. And I walk with my beautiful, fit-looking daughter to say she's fainted. And as you can imagine, people weren't, immediately thinking, gosh, these two need help. And they were, wanted to know more information. And I said, she's not poorly. There's nothing wrong. She's been on the exercise bike. She's come in for a drink and a snack. She went upstairs to have a shower. She told me all about who she was going to see that day, what her plans were. And then she just collapsed. And it just doesn't make sense. And so they asked me what would I like them to do. And I'd said, I don't know. I just feel I need some baseline checks. So I said, how do you feel if we do an ECG? And reassured Poppy, it's straightforward, it's not going to hurt, it's not invasive. We check your pulse for a little while, we'll check your blood pressure, we'll do your height and weight, and we might take some bloods to be on the safe side. And Poppy said, yeah, okay. And at this point, Poppy's feeling a little bit lightheaded, but she's feeling okay. She's not feeling really poorly. And she says, yeah, that's fine. And I think we were on the unit for about 4 hours. And we had all of those baseline checks and everything was fine. And it was, if it happens again, please come back and see us. We'll notify your GP you've been in, but we're not worried. And I guess from a parent's perspective, I wish I could have advocated more strongly and said, I'm still not happy, but I did feel satisfied.
Okay.
I did feel happy that Poppy had been taken care of. And I still believe to this day that the medical practitioners on duty did the best they could with the information that they had. Knowing what I know now, the right thing to do is to refer to a cardiologist. And sadly, after Poppy's death, our cardiologist advised us, fainting after exertion is a red flag. And it's those adrenaline responses. If you have an arrhythmia condition, exertion can just tip your heart into an unhealthy rhythm. And it would have been most helpful if we could have had that referral based on Poppy's presentation, based on what Mum said, rather than a normal standalone ECG. I guess I acknowledge, taking Poppy to A&E, these are frontline A&E clinicians. These aren't cardiologists.
Yes.
And I'm very respectful of that. But I think the more we learn about inherited cardiac conditions and the signs, I think we need to move away from reassuring patients too quickly. And I think we need to standardise pathways for inherited cardiac conditions to be identified appropriately and for young people to have access to treatment. With treatment and management, we can achieve long lives for those with these conditions if we only know about them.
And how can people find out about these types of conditions?
So Poppy's Light Foundation have a website, and we have our own information hub, which is an evidence-based information hub. And we've consulted with experts from cardiology, from public health, from a range of disciplines who all endorse that the information shared is appropriate, but not ever to replace the advice of your GP or cardiologist. But it's a really good stop back in between when you think, what was I told today? I'd like to know a little bit more about these investigations I'm going to have, or I'd like to know a little bit more about my diagnosis. It's a really useful information hub.
And you've mentioned that Poppy's, one of her main signs was that she fainted. Are there any other signs that people could look out for?
There are, but they are quite subtle.
Okay.
So Poppy often complained of feeling lightheaded, and she was a teenage girl, and she really struggled the time of the month. She was plagued by heavy periods, and she worked really, really hard. And she would be engrossed in her work, and I'd pick her up from sixth form and say, how was your day? And she'd say, oh, fine, but I got this done, what I was wanting to get done in textiles. And I said, have you eaten? And she said, no, I didn't want to walk along to get lunch. It was so far away and I didn't have enough time. And I just had a drink and a snack. And I'd say, well, no wonder you feel lightheaded. And I guess I wish I'd been less dismissive, and I wish I'd just had that chat with the GP to talk about Poppy feeling lightheaded. And she would say things like, I think I'm anemic. I think I feel a bit anemic. And I would say, but she had the rosiest, perfect Cupid's bow lips. She had roses in her cheeks, and her eyes were like vivid green and really sparkly, and her hair was glossy and gorgeous, and nails were lovely. And, you know, I said, I don't think you're anemic. You know, I would check like the pinks of her eyes and things, and, you know, she just looked really, really healthy. And I don't know, I regret that. I regret not taking her to the GP and just talking about those symptoms. I guess we're always worried. You know, we hear about lengthy waiting times, and we know how busy GP surgeries are. And I just didn't think we needed to go to the GP, and I wish that we had gone.
Yeah.
And I kind of ruminate speaking to our cardiologist who saw us after Poppy passed away. And, you know, his words, he said, we love to give people reassurance and send people away that everything's okay. And we're always saddened to give people the news of a diagnosis, but we know we can deal with that. We can manage that. We can prescribe for that pretty well. We can see you regularly and help you. The real tough consultations are when we meet families and it's just too late. And that kind of stayed with me, and I guess that's a message I would share with every mum and dad. You know, there's nothing more important than your child. Absolutely nothing more important. And I think, however busy your GP is, a lot of GPs are parents too, and they understand when parents feel anxious and there's a niggle and something just isn't quite right.
That's a really powerful message to reframe it. But I don't think you can blame yourself. So many teenagers experience those symptoms. I mean, I remember experiencing all those symptoms.
Same, yeah. Me too. The biggest warning sign is around exertion.
Okay.
So fainting or feeling really lightheaded or seizure type activity during or shortly after exertion, that's the real red flag.
Okay.
And that's really part of our work as a foundation, is to speak with GPs and A&E clinicians and encourage that open dialogue. Let's refer around presentation, because a standalone ECG just really isn't robust enough. Something like CPVT, the chances of seeing that rhythm from one ECG is so slight.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess parents just don't understand that.
Absolutely.
You know, you just think you're getting hooked up to the machine, it's all looking good.
That's right.
Is it a blood test that can help detect whether people have it?
Genetics. So yes, you can have a blood test and to be sent to genetics and screen for genetic mutations. And it was actually a sample of Poppy's spleen after she passed away that told us she had a mutation on RY-R2 gene. And that gave us information so that our children could be screened for the same condition. And also for myself and my husband to be screened to see if we'd passed it on. It's a blurred sort of area. There's no kind of black or white, really, because I have a significant cardiac background. I hadn't been aware that my paternal grandfather had died at 49 through a sudden cardiac arrest out of hospital. He was tall, he was fit, he was in the army, he was a medic, and he was boarding the train. He was just on the platform, went from the platform to the train, and he had a sudden out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, and he didn't survive that. His brother was only 49 when that happened, and his brother was only 43.
Oh, goodness.
And he went to bed and didn't wake up. I guess that had happened when my dad was so young, a long time before I was even thought of. So that information had kind of been lost in translation in my family.
Okay.
And maybe if I'd been more aware of that, I would have advocated more strongly in A&E that day to say that, look, could this be significant? There is a significant cardiac history. There's 2 sudden cardiac deaths in my paternal family, and I'm worried this could impact Poppy in some way.
Yeah.
But it was only after Poppy passed away and there was a detailed family history taken of my family, of Peter's family. And then just speaking to my parents, we learned, I hadn't realised my grandfather was only 49 when he died.
Yeah.
My dad was only 15 at the time. And as I say, I just hadn't realised the gravity of the situation, even as a nurse. And I think if that's happened in my family, it's probably happened in lots of others too.
Yeah. So it's important to talk about family history.
I think so.
Yeah, especially if there is fainting after exercise, ask people, ask family members.
Yeah.
That's an important message as well. With it being a genetic condition, I guess you were immediately so worried about your other children.
Yeah, definitely. And even before the test came back, it was a long, long time before we learned that Poppy had CPVT. Just in the early hours, up to around 10 sort of weeks, I had the children sleeping with me in the same room, and I could just kind of feel that the risk, if this has happened. So Poppy just looked like we do. We'd been out for tea, everything was absolutely fine. She'd gone up to our room to change, and even as a nurse, I know people don't just die. There has to be a reason for this. And all of the early tests were that nothing was wrong with Poppy, which kind of added to our worry that there's been something catastrophic that's happened. And naturally I worried, could it have been like an aneurysm, a brain aneurysm, something like that? And nothing was making sense. A young, fit, slender young woman, it doesn't fit the profile. And then I started to think about SADS, which is a diagnosis of exclusion when they don't know what's happened, but it's a suspected cardiac cause. And then I started to research what this could be. And really, I remember bursting into tears when our cardiologist explained Poppy had CPVT. And straight away, I just thought, oh no, not again. Have any of the other children got this? And are we going to have to go through this again? And most difficult of all, the kids were asking those questions too.
Yeah,
is
they
this
would have been
something
worried.
that I have too? And it was kind of how we approach this. So the kids haven't experienced loss before, and to lose their sister was huge. So we kind of said, we embrace the concept, of heaven and that spiritual belief. And Poppy's not in any pain, and she's still with us. We can feel her. And so the kids are kind of walking like a double, where we're not afraid of dying, but we feel guilty for being afraid of dying because Poppy's. And it was just all of these complex kind of feelings.
And massive loss.
Absolutely.
As well
Absolutely.
as you. And how do you manage to grieve in those processes where you've still got, how many other children do you have? Four. So you still have to care for them and try and make sure they're okay while you're in immense pain and grief yourself.
We've got an amazing family. The girls go to an amazing school. It was all hands on deck. And I don't know, I think for 3 weeks, I don't think you could really say that I cared for the children, really. But, my mum did, and Peter's mum did. And there's something about when the head teacher from your school is sitting at the kitchen table helping look after your girls.
That is incredible. I mean, I think we should name the school for that,
Yeah, Durham High School. Yeah, they became our family. And I guess there was a time when they actually became corporate parents for the girls, to help look after them at a time when we just couldn't. We just fell apart in so many different ways. And yeah, they are definitely part of the story where they help put us back together again. And certainly for me to be able to parent the girls, which I'm doing. And that's something that in the early weeks I developed a sense of, I have to do this for them. They feel like they've lost their sister. They can't lose their mum and dad too. We have to be here. We have to be available. And that's something a lot of adults recall when they've lost a sibling in childhood, and they'll say, mum and dad were never quite the same. And sure, definitely the spaces we hold, our availability for certain situations has definitely changed, but our availability for them is stronger than ever.
You're incredible. What has given you the strength to not just get through the last almost 2 years, but also, develop a charity in Poppy's name?
I think there's a huge amount of guilt that Poppy's death was preventable, and that's just natural as a parent. What could I have done differently? How could I have prevented this? Why could I not have advocated more strongly? And then I thought, what I can do as a parent, as a nurse, really, I can share what we've learned. I can share that, and that's quite powerful, not just with GPs and A&E clinicians, but with young people themselves. Going into schools, I have the opportunity to talk about how amazing Poppy was, with her strong belief that you cannot live your life in fear, and you can and will do anything you set your heart and mind to. And she had a bumpy school journey. She left her first comprehensive school. It was a large setting, and she just got smaller and smaller and smaller. And coming to the high school, everything changed for Poppy. You know, she found her identity, and she found this zest for life and this determination to succeed. She discovered her love of textiles, and she absolutely excelled, getting into London Fashion College on her portfolio alone. And that's a message that I can share with young people. You know, you will blossom in the right environment. You will blossom when your heart feels heard. And it's important for us all to listen to our heart, to help look after our hearts. And I say, you know, fainting during exercise is not okay. And that's whether you're on the football pitch, whether you're playing netball, whether you're running for a bus or you're on your bike with your friends. If you're fainting during exercise, we need that referral to cardiology.
Yeah. Thank you for reinforcing that. Do you believe Poppy's still with you in spirit?
Really, yeah. Some days I feel closer to Poppy than ever before. You know, we put our twinkle lights on in our bedroom every night, just as she did, and we close our blinds and we open our blinds in the morning and we say goodnight to her, and the girls go into her room and they talk to her and they tell her about their day. There's a book on her bed that she bought shortly before she died, and it was a journaling book. She absolutely loved stationery, and it was when blank pages turn into big ideas, and it's got a name on, Poppy Eagle. So that's become the girls' little journal platform, and they write to her and they tell her about her day, and they text her and they send her little memes off Instagram on her phone, and she is absolutely with us in everything that we do.
It's a really hard conversation. Would you like to share?
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Thank you.
Does she give you any signs that she's still with you?
Dragonflies. So obviously they're seasonal. But 2 days after Poppy passed away, and we'd gone to the church, and as we came out of the church, and we live in Washington Village, in 47 years that I've lived there, I don't ever recall seeing a dragonfly in Washington. And we were with our family, my mum and dad, Peter's mum and dad, the girls, and 2 really big dragonflies swept down in front of the church in front of us.
Wow.
And they flew around, and it was just such a comfort. And Florrie, my littlest, who was 8 at the time, she said, Mum, it's dragonflies, Mum. Poppy's okay, Mum. Poppy's okay. She's still here. She's still here.
Oh my goodness.
Poppy had a love of dragonflies, and she did a dragonfly for a final A-level piece, and that was part of her entry into London College of Fashion. So we just knew. And then we went to Florida in the autumn with our family, and we were at the Kennedy Space Centre, and my nephew is fascinated with space, all things space. He loves. And we were absolutely inundated with dragonflies. Wow. So we talked about Poppy and what Poppy would think. So we'd been to see the space shuttle, which was stitched in tiny little quilting detail to stop the heat from the radiation getting to the astronauts. And there was a story, you know, about the seamstresses who kind of protected the astronauts. And Florrie had picked that out in the gift store. Do you think Poppy would like this? And yeah, we bought that for Poppy. And as we stepped out from the gift store, all of these dragonflies, and there must have been maybe 30 dragonflies were flying around us, and we videoed them, and they were so fast, and they were in the blue and green colours, the same as Poppy's A-level piece. And the girls just hugged each other, and we just know that she's here. We just absolutely know.
Have you had any other profound experiences that are really difficult to explain?
Yeah. When, I go every day, I go to where Poppy rests, and Christmas felt a little heavier. And it was after Christmas. It was it was the 5th of January, and I wanted to change her Christmas flowers for more spring flowers. And I'd said to my husband, Peter, I'd said, will you come to the church? I'm going to change Poppy's flowers. And I never normally ask him to do that. Like, never normally. Peter's working full time, and it's my place that I go and I do her flowers, and they're always seasonal flowers, and they always kind of represent Poppy. And so he came with me, and we had some new pots and things to put out, and I was just cutting the stems off the bottom flowers and just arranging them just so. And I kind of felt that somebody else was with me, and there was a robin just sat just on the top of Poppy's little plaque. And I looked up, and just as Peter was kind of coming round to stand beside me, another robin just flew round beside him, and we looked at each other. And there was a robin here, this side of Poppy's resting place, and there was a robin there, that side of Poppy's resting place. And I just felt as though she was saying, "You've got this, Mum and Dad. You're doing this. You're doing it."
Wow, that's amazing. It's giving me goose pimples. Do you believe that one day you'll be reunited?
100%. 100%. It felt like forever before I dreamt about Poppy again. And I had a dream, and it was a really, really vivid dream. And sadly, Peter and Ollie weren't in the dream, but they have their own dreams with Poppy. It was me and the girls, and she was kind of running towards us in this dream. And we were so excited, and you know that feeling when you're kind of running, but you're not getting there in time.
Yeah.
And we're just running. And then we all kind of collapsed in a heap together, and we were cuddling so tightly, like so tightly. And we were all kissing each other, like all of us just kissing each other. But as I was kissing Poppy in the dream, I felt her cheek, and it was real. It was really, really real. And I know that she's saying, "You keep doing this, you keep going, because this is what's coming. We're all going to be together again."
And I guess moments like that give you strength as well to keep going.
Yeah, they do. I really feel that heaven is a beautiful, wonderful place. And I say to Poppy, "I'm strong. Don't linger. Don't feel you need to linger. Mum is so strong. Yes, we had a bumpy start. We had a really rough landing, but I'm doing it now. I'm doing it. And I want you to absolutely make the most of this experience. You can be anywhere you want to be. You've got your astral driver's license now. You can visit anywhere." And she had big plans to travel. She wanted to go to Paris. She wanted to go to Australia. I said, "Do all of those things and trust that Mum's got this. There's nothing I can't carry. There's nothing I can't do for the girls. I have got this."
Do you feel that she really needed to hear that from the other side?
I do. I really felt that she needed. I think she really worried in the beginning. Really, really worried.
Mm-hmm. I love that astral driver's license. What's been the hardest moment you faced?
It's difficult to put it into one moment. I think through all of this, the connection with Poppy, even kind of caring for her after she passed away, and spending time in the chapel, and songs we listened to, and reading to her, and the way we did her hair, the way we did her makeup, the pajamas we chose for her, the way we did her room. We kind of knew she was very much still here, very much still with us, and we needed to get this right through to how we celebrated her life and the flowers we chose. Her dad and her brother, she absolutely adored, And I think even Mrs. Wheeler from the high school, head of year, remembers Poppy saying, I really don't know if I'll ever get married, guys. And her friend had said, why? And she says, well, my dad's just wrecked it for me, because really, if anybody doesn't treat me the way my dad treats my mum, that's it, he's out.
That's so lovely.
And, you know, she had such a close relationship with her dad. She really, really did, and her brother. And I think she held them both as the benchmark. She really knew how special she was and what she deserved and what she absolutely would not accept under any circumstances. Through to, I remember the decision, you know, on whether Poppy should be buried, whether she should be cremated. And, you know, we went with cremation, and it was such a tough decision. And Peter and I closed the lid of the casket ourselves, and, you know, we kissed her and we cuddled her, and we promised her we would be with her as far as we could go. And I remember after the family service at the cemetery, I just had a feeling the next day that I wanted to be at the cemetery. And I just drove up, and Natalie, who helped us plan the celebrations for Poppy's life, was there just in front of the cemetery. And she said, I was just thinking about you. I can't believe that you're here. And I said, I just felt really compelled to be here. I just needed to come here. And she said, and she had Poppy's ashes. And I'd said, can I hold them? Can I just hold them? And she said, we're supposed to take them back to the funeral home, and you're supposed to sign. And she said, yeah. And she gave me Poppy's ashes. And there's a place that I sit at the cemetery, and it's right beside the high school. And that's why we have memorials at the cemetery too. And I sat in this little stone bucket seat where I sit, and I held her on my knee. And my mum had the same feeling, and my mum had come to the cemetery also.
Oh, okay.
And I guess for her, you know, she carries her grief, my grief, the kids' grief, worries about Poppy, worries about Peter, worries about Ollie, keeps everyone together. And for her, that was her hardest part. To see her little girl holding her little girl.
God, yeah. Horrendous. I can relate to what Poppy said about her dad and brother, though. I'm very blessed with that too. And talking about how different family members respond to grief. How has your husband Peter responded to the grief, and how's that been different to you?
Very, very different. Very different. We're broke in such different ways. I guess for Peter, he employs lots of different people. He has, you know, payroll. The girls are in an independent school. We have mortgages. For me, 2 days after, sort of through the night on what would be the second day, I messaged my boss. I tried to think what it must have been like for her reading that message about what had happened, and that I wouldn't be coming back to work, because I knew my place was at home. For Peter, it was a completely different reality. Our livelihood relied on him supporting us financially.
Yeah.
So he threw himself into work, and it was such a difficult time. I guess I felt very alone in my grief, and he felt very alone in his. And both of us were trying to cobble together some kind of existence for Ollie and the girls. It was a very, very difficult time, and I don't think either one of us ever thought that we'd get through that at all. And then something kind of happened. You know, I officially broke, and, you know, a team of medical professionals, you know, helped put me back together. And I guess as I got stronger, there was space for Peter to break. And then we start, and somehow you're either destroyed or the pieces sort of begin to cement themselves back together in a new reality, and I guess probably stronger than whatever was.
And what would you say is the hardest part of grief?
I remember in the very beginning, sort of, I couldn't even listen to the radio. I couldn't even have the TV on. And it was this idea that the sun's still coming up when the world's ended. You know, there's still night and day. What happens? Another day has passed since she was here. Another day has passed. Another week. And that's been the hardest, when the hours turn into days, weeks, months, years. And I guess that reality's sort of forced upon you. It's just being able to put one foot in front of the other. Like every breath. I remember saying to my mum, you know, it's literally it's like contractions. It's a physical pain. It's absolute agony. And then I guess to lose a parent, for example, one of you is really, really hurting. To lose your child, you're both in absolute agony. And worse than that, your children are in absolute agony. And that was the hardest part.
Mm-hmm. And at what point did you develop the strength to think, right, I'm going to set up a charity?
It was really... The charity was registered during Heart Month on the 20th of February 2025. And we'd spoken a long time about keeping Poppy's light here. There was a light around Poppy that we just were determined would never let go. And we thought about, how can we help people? What can we do? What can this all be for? And then it was around about 6 months when we learned that Poppy had CPVT, and the screening started for our other children and ourselves. And we learned Poppy's death was preventable. And then at that point, we just thought our charity must be around education and screening and management, and for prevention of death, of sudden cardiac death. So in a very quick first attempt, I think I wrote the charity constitution, because sleep was very difficult. I didn't sleep for a long, long time. Frequently, I would go to the beach and just watch the sun come up and just the sound of the waves. And it was on one of those nights, and I'd come back, and I just, on my laptop, I just thought, I'm going to write this constitution. I'm going to write this all. And I submitted it, and it was accepted in the first time. Just sharing kind of Poppy's story, the symptoms, the opportunity to educate and prevent these sudden deaths. So before we knew it, we had a website built, and we had plans for the information hub. And now within a year, we'll open the first hub in the UK, right here in our region, for universal screening of all young people, to identify inherited cardiac conditions and access treatment and management.
That's incredible. You must feel very proud of what you achieved.
Yeah, we do. There'll be a northern hub from Newcastle area, and there'll be a southern hub, Teesside area, and there'll be a mobile solution in between for outlying areas. And an opportunity to support our NHS as well with gym spaces and consultancy spaces, and to ensure that all families have that access to screening and treatment to save lives.
Incredible. And I know you've mentioned there's no blame, but there must have been anger, the fact it could have been prevented.
In the beginning, there was an anger that I could never have dreamt was even possible. It was an anger that I just can't put into words, and it wasn't directed at anybody, because at that time we didn't even understand what had happened. Just the idea that we tried really hard to be good parents, and I guess, can we be forgiven for thinking, why us, when why anybody? And in the beginning, it was that sort of, we did everything we could. How has this happened? What have we missed? And it was all consuming. It really, really was.
Did you feel a real sense of injustice?
Strangely, no. Strangely, that hasn't really hit, but more a responsibility to share Poppy's story.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're certainly doing a great job of doing that, and the education aspect. I'm sure you've already prevented anyone else going through this, or some people, and hopefully more people in the future.
Yeah.
Personal isn't just about business. It's about the human stories behind them. We address all aspects of health, from cancer, gastric bands and meningitis to mental health and the menopause. Nothing is off limits on this show. But as these stories often highlight, you can't take your health for granted. I know I don't, and that's why I trust WPA to protect my health. WPA isn't like any other health insurer. It's not for profit and offers award-winning, tailored health insurance solutions to individuals, families, and businesses of all sizes. Among UK health insurers, it consistently tops consumer surveys and Trustpilot ratings, while its members can manage their membership from pre-authorising claims to accessing remote GP services, all on the WPA Health app. Crucially, they help ensure the access to the very best treatment at a time and place that is convenient to you. I speak with Martin Nichols, one of the 90 plus dedicated WPA healthcare partners across Britain, who provides advice and ongoing support during your journey with WPA. Contact Martin anytime on 07870 513 653 to discuss your requirements. Martin Nichols, appointed representative of WPA Healthcare Practice PLC, authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. The healthcare practice is a wholly owned subsidiary of Western Provident Association Limited, WPA. You've developed an acronym, POPPY, that helps people spot signs. Can you share that, please?
Yeah, so POPPY. P is for presenting with syncope. That means faint or seizure. And O means occurring after exertion or around exertion. And then P is personal family history, thinking about your cardiac history. And the second P is possible arrhythmia. And the Y, most importantly, is yield to referral, not reassurance.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. And what are you campaigning or pushing for really strongly at the moment?
So conditions such as ICCs affect around 1 in 200 young people. The term inherited cardiac condition covers around 15 to 20 different inherited cardiac conditions. They come under 3 headings. So there's channelopathies, which is what Poppy had, and that involves the electrical activity of your heart, and that can go very wrong very quickly without medication and management. And cardiomyopathies, they affect the muscle of the heart, and they also can be fatal without management. And aortopathies, and the aorta is a very important part of the heart, and that can also lead to fatalities without treatment. So together, these ICCs as a collective affect 1 in 200 young people. Sadly, 12 of those young people will die this week. Every week, these conditions are taking 12 lives.
Wow.
It's estimated 65,000 young people in England are walking around with an undiagnosed, inherited cardiac condition.
Scary.
So we are campaigning not only for universal screening opportunities at 14 and 18, but also for ICCs to be added to the Guthrie test. That's the newborn heel prick test. The Guthrie has been around since the 60s, and it's a very powerful screening tool to identify reversible conditions and conditions that may not be reversible but can have much greater outcomes for longevity of life when identified early. Some of the ICCs are completely reversible when identified. Wolff-Parkinson-White is one of those, and with ablation, Wolff-Parkinson-White is curable. CPVT is managed with medication. It's very important that parents have that information to keep their children safe. So that's a big campaign that the charity is focused with the Health Secretary and the Deputy Health Secretary around how can we and when should we add ICCs to the newborn heel prick test.
Brilliant. I hope it gets done. Have you got a deadline or a date when you're hoping it'll be passed?
So the 10-year cardiac plan is for prevention over cure, and it's to move cardiac services out of clinical spaces into the community. It's around health advocacy. It's around better outcomes for our young people and their cardiac health. And I am really hoping that our government makes that a priority sooner rather than later. It is a priority in Europe. It is a priority in the US. Okay. And I really think it's time for ICCs to become a priority, a national priority here in the UK.
I kind of wonder why they're not.
I guess maybe it's these conditions aren't spoken about. I think too often they've been under the heading of SADS, and that's a tragic outcome that nobody could have seen coming and nothing could be done. And I think it's busting that myth. I think also it's about recognising the warning signs and sharing stories. So if I was to say to you epilepsy, I'm confident you've heard of it. And if I was to say to you long QT, you may not have heard of that. Both conditions affect 1 in 1,000 young people. Both conditions are manageable with medication. Both conditions can be fatal without medication and medical management. Why is it we prioritise epilepsy and we don't prioritise ICCs? Surely both are preventable health conditions.
Absolutely. And I guess it just comes down to awareness.
I think so. And I think it's statistics are one thing, and 12 deaths per week is a powerful statistic. But I think sharing stories, and sadly, you know, Poppy's story isn't the only one like this. We had Clarissa's story. Clarissa was a Cambridge student. She was 20, the same age as Poppy when she died. And she was trekking in France. Her friend remembers her saying, "Oh no," and she collapsed and had a cardiac arrest while trekking. Clarissa had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is also an inherited cardiac condition. And like Poppy, she had attended A&E a year before her death after fainting during exercise. Miles' story from Wolverhampton, he was 15 when he died, and he died on the 8th anniversary of his father's death. His dad died before 50, and I believe that was just thought to have been a heart attack without any further scrutiny. Spleen sampling in sudden cardiac death is really, really important, and that's something the foundation has campaigned for in our region, for a sample of spleen to be used in cases of an unexplained death, because that gives us the genetic information that can allow family screening and ensure family members are cared for and looked after.
Okay, that's really important, and you're so true about the sharing the story. And I'm so appreciative of you coming on the show to share it, because it's a really hard story to share, but I'm sure it will help so many people and help the charity. Speaking of the charity, how can people find out more about it? What's the website? Any other information?
Yeah, you can follow us on our website, Poppy's Light Foundation. Look out for our information hub. You can follow us on Instagram. We have a Poppy's Light Foundation Facebook page, and you can find us on LinkedIn. We have a contact form on the website, and we have our email address. Please do reach out.
And I know it's very early days for you, but do you believe as a mother you ever recover from this type of traumatic situation?
I believe you find a new reality. I guess you live alongside your grief, and grief is very painful, but there's also space for grief to be very beautiful too. We are so blessed to have loved Poppy, and you know, we tell her every day that we'll choose her in every lifetime, and we hope she chooses us too. Grief is ultimately the price you pay for love, and we're so fortunate to feel a love like this.
That's a beautiful way of articulating that. How are you rebuilding your life?
The foundation is a really, really powerful focus. Going into schools and sharing Poppy's story in a delicate way is really cathartic. And the idea that we're making sense out of something so tragic. Being there for the girls, celebrating their milestones, celebrating birthdays. I'm not employed now. I was a nurse for 25 years. And as you can imagine, there's always a bottleneck for holidays and school holidays and getting that time off. So I'm very fortunate, you know, to spend as much time as I possibly can with the girls. And I think any parent in a similar situation to ours will identify that we miss the kids even when we're with them. It's that reality that everything can change in a snapshot. And a new kind of clarity around what's important and what's less important.
And when you're asked the question how many children you have, how do you answer that, or do you struggle to answer it?
5. We have 5 children, and we are absolutely Poppy's mum and dad forever, and she's our daughter forever. and we're busy, you know, personally and with the charity in Poppy's legacy. But personally, this would have been Poppy's graduation month, and we're choosing to celebrate Poppy's heavenly graduation because she excelled in her first year. She was destined for great things, and the university awarded her with a Cert Ed, which was amazing. We 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 framed her prom dress. We travelled down to Sussex, and we found a beautiful framing studio, and our prom dress was preserved and framed, and that's pride of place in our new house that we're renovating, which is as close as it possibly can be to Poppy's resting place, which is why we bought it. And every day we live in a way that we think Poppy would be proud of, and demonstrate, show the world, you know, I am Poppy's mum, and that's never going to change.
It's lovely. Do you feel that she still guides you, even with the charity?
Definitely. There was some magazines reached out about a year after Poppy passed away, and they wanted to share the story of inherited cardiac conditions and raise the profile, which I said, yes, absolutely. And when I got the article back, it really, really sensationalised Poppy's death. It was very much about what had happened, and I could hear Poppy say, absolutely not, ma'am. Absolutely not. Pull this. This is not what I want at all. And I remember phoning the editor and said, I'm sorry, I've changed my mind. And she says, what's changed your mind? I said, Poppy doesn't like it. She really doesn't like it. And she said, excuse me. I said, I feel strongly I must pull this story and it can't go ahead. It's sensationalising her death and it's not educational. So yeah, she guides us. Absolutely.
Well, I'm very grateful that Poppy's let you come on the podcast. So thank you, Poppy. So many people go through grief, but I feel like we're taught so little about it, you know, maybe even at school or in kind of early adult life. What do you wish people knew more about grief, and how can they better support people?
I guess anything related to death is so scary. And I think what's really helped me is a spiritual faith. The idea that life is bigger than a body. It's bigger than the vehicle that is our body, that energy. And I guess the whole sense of what is our purpose and why are we here and why do we choose this life and come down to earth and what lessons do we want to learn? And that seems quite abstract for many people. But when you're faced with an unfathomable loss that you just can't quantify, there's something quite liberating in exploring this concept of something bigger than what we are, bigger than what we see,
yes,
and just feeling that sense of purpose. And when you feel that, and when you kind of find a sense of peace and find some kind of calm in the horror, they're the times that you feel closest of all to your loved one. They're the times that I can really hear Poppy's voice. I can smell her perfume. I can kind of feel that she's okay. And they say, you might have read this, you know, when you're fortunate enough to have had a baby and carried a child, and your child's cells stay in you
yes,
for a long, long time, you know, many, many years. And it's kind of that bond is so strong. And you know, even on earth, sometimes we can sense if our child's had a bad day, or, you know, if something's happened, and we've got that instinct to phone them or just go and pick them up from football a little earlier, or some abstract thing that we do. And it's the same so often. Yes, I can be crying, it can be a really tough day, but I really feel a sense of peace around Poppy. And I think, like all good mums would do, it's important to listen to that instinct and to trust it. And I know Poppy is right here, right beside me all of the time.
It's beautiful. And if anyone's listening to this and they're perhaps supported a friend going through it or a family member, what did you need in those really hardest times?
Just for people to make space to be. There is no right thing to say. There's no right thing to do. And there's not any way to take the pain away. It's kind of making space and just, it's time. Time is really the most precious gift you could give a bereaved parent.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you so much for your really articulate and at times really beautiful answers. We now have our regular questions, which hopefully will lighten things a little bit. It's on a scale of 1 to 10. You rate yourself at the following things. A 1's the worst, 10's the best. Okay, so Vicki, how good looking would you say you are?
I think I would probably say a solid 7.
How funny are you?
It depends on the day. I can sometimes have some witty quips. I maybe might reach an 8.5.
How good at cooking are you?
6.
Okay. Singing?
7.
That's good. Yeah. Drinking alcohol?
7.
Is it something you've had to turn to help you get through some of these hard times?
When Poppy first passed away, I didn't drink any alcohol because it was the idea of having a glass of wine and relaxing. You kind of do that to punctuate your day, punctuate your week. Something when your week's gone well. Yeah, we've got this done, we've got that done. We didn't get that done, but that was great. Let's sit down and have a glass of wine. There was nothing about that situation where I felt I could have a glass of wine. It was very much a reminder of kind of the before and the after. Slowly, we're some time in, and slowly a glass of wine is quite nice. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's been a slippery slope with alcohol.
Okay. Parenting skills.
So I guess after Poppy passed away, I would say 0. And I guess today, as things are, I can't imagine doing anything different today to what I'm doing. The girls, I watched Florrie at a swimming gala recently, and she was in between swims, and she was dipping her toes in the water and flicking the water, and she was laughing with her friends, and she was clapping her hands. And I thought to myself, if nobody knew any of these children, and if somebody said which ones lost their sister suddenly in really tragic circumstances, you really wouldn't pick Florrie out. And then I thought to myself, I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
It's definitely a good sign. And I'm sure your children, even at the hardest moments, would never give you a 0. And I bet you watch moments like that with fresh eyes and appreciate every single bit.
Yeah, it's a reminder. Faith, Poppy's first sister down, has been nominated to be head girl.
I saw that. It's amazing.
And that was a little moment of what else is still to live for. And I guess, Ollie's still really young. He's only 23, but we look forward to the day where there might be grandchildren, and yeah, an idea of we must honour Poppy in this life.
How good a friend are you?
In the last 2 years, maybe 0. Yeah, I guess grief has been all-consuming, and my focus on being a parent has also been all-consuming, and Poppy's legacy. And I think for everyone, I think we all need to be more aware about the spaces we give to situations. And I think it is absolutely okay to no longer have space, or to need time out, or to be aware that you need to step back from a situation. I think that's the kindest thing that you can possibly do. And certainly over the last sort of 18 months, we've kept a very close circle, and just kind of focusing on the children.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure true friends will understand that and be there for you when you're ready.
Yeah.
How intelligent are you?
Well, I got a 2-1 in my degree. I have a master's, which was a slog.
But you got it.
I got it, yeah.
Brilliant. How kind are you?
I think after to feel this loss and to be broken, you're very aware of other people can be in the car in front of you, or sat having a coffee beside you, or walking past you, and they too could be absolutely broken.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes me very kind, because I have a fresh perspective and opportunity to see we're all carrying something.
Mm-hmm. So would you say a 10? Go on, give yourself a 10.
Maybe a 10.
Okay, excellent. And finally, Vicki, how good at sex are you?
Oh, again, in the last 18 months, that's really probably about a 0.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been really, really hard in our relationship, because I think for a man, I think he kind of feels that's important for the relationship. Where I think for a woman, we kind of feel it's the little things, it's the hand holding, the availability. And it's such, for all it's really, really natural, it's the most vulnerable place you can be as a woman in that side of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm definitely still surviving, and that doesn't really feel very natural to me. I have to be really honest.
Oh, well, thank you for being so honest, and thank you for all of your answers. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.